Hey guys, how's it going? Thought I might share with y'all a little something I got for myself over the winter break. I purchased an Age of Sigmar paint set for the Skaven army, which gave me 5 little Skaven rat fellas, 6 Citadel paint containers, and a brush. If I remember correctly, it was around $35, so not a bad deal when it comes to Warhammer products. But a funny story about where I got this from. The day that I got this set, I was planning to go with some friends to the local Warhammer store. I had never really been there, and I just recently have been getting more into Warhammer, the lore, the models and whatnot, and thought I might check it out since I was home for the break and my friends were in town. The store hours online said that they were open, but when we showed up, they were closed, so we kind of mingled around the nearby shopping area and grabbed lunch while we tried to find another wargaming hobby store. One of my friends managed to find a store near us that had a ton of Warhammer products and had been there for a couple of years, and we had just found out about it. The store's in one of those unassuming office spaces off the side of the freeway, and it's kind of hidden by the environment around it, but this place was awesome when we walked in. Not only did they have a crap ton of Warhammer and other tabletop gaming stuff, they had Pokemon cards, they had Magic the Gathering, they had several wargaming tables in the back, the whole 9 yards. It was great. Definitely going to be visiting that place more often when I come back home. But anyways, this is my second time painting a Warhammer set. The first set that was painted was also an Age of Sigmar paint box. It was 3 Stormcast Eternal troops, I believe, and those turned out great. The models in the Age of Sigmar game, I think they look fantastic. Some of my favorite factions are the Chaos Demons. Compared to the 40k models, I think the Chaos Demon models from Age of Sigmar have a lot more character and a lot more detail. I just think they look really cool. But my favorite faction, aside from the Chaos ones in Age of Sigmar, are the Skaven, basically just anthropomorphic rats. I find them hilarious as a faction. They're just a swarm of rats with makeshift weapons. They're kind of like the orcs, but not as gifted in the sense that they can't make things reality just by believing it. I don't know, I find myself loving these little guys. And I remember the first time I found out about them was when I used to watch a lot of Total War Warhammer 3 gaming videos. And I remember one of the videos, the title was something like Conquering the World with Only Rats, which immediately caught my eye, and these guys have been one of my favorite factions in all of Warhammer ever since. Thought I might walk through the process of how I painted these guys. I am no expert in painting models, just want to make that clear, but I thought I might share anyway. So I don't have any spray can primer, so I primed all of these models with a paintbrush using Rakarth Flesh Paint. I believe that's how you pronounce that. I applied about 2 to 3 thin layers of paint per model, so as to not clog up any of the details in the models. I let the paint dry for around 15 to 20 minutes. It probably dries quicker than this. These paints do dry quick in my experience, which is why I don't put very much on a single layer. I don't want any blobs or beads forming, but I like to play it safe around the 15 to 20 minute mark. For the rat's clothing, I used the provided corn red paint and also applied around 2 to 3 thin layers. I pour out my cup of water for the brush since the water is no longer clear, and I don't want any of that watered down Rakarth flesh from before getting into other paints. By the way I thin my paint layers is that I put just a drop or 2 of water and a little bit of paint that I put on the palette and mix gently. A little goes a long way on models this size, so all you need to do is just barely dip the tip of the brush in the paint. And sometimes I even like to take a little bit off the brush in order to gain more control over how much paint is on the brush and where it goes. I sometimes just scrape a little paint off either on my finger or a paper towel. Either one will do. I don't know why, but I find painting models is very therapeutic for me. When I was painting these, I was just completely zen and focused. I had some jazz on in the background, and I wasn't thinking or worrying about anything else. It's a very relaxing experience, and if you can't get your hands on Warhammer, then I definitely recommend finding maybe some D&D models. I think those are a bit cheaper. I'm not sure, but I highly recommend model painting, or just painting in general. Painting in general is just very relaxing. The next paint I am using is the Steel Legion Drab. This was the paint I used the least of. On the paint guide, there weren't many spots to use this paint on. This was mainly used for the wooden shields, wooden handles on the weapon, and very small parts on the clothing like sacks and rope and little ties. The next paint I use is Lead Belcher, and this is using the parts on the model that are supposed to appear metal. I've used this paint before in the box set that I mentioned earlier, and I really like the metallic shine that it gives. Next up is to apply technical astro granite to the base of the model. This stuff is kind of clumpy, so when you spread it out when painting, it gives this very cool rocky look to the already textured model base. With this stuff though, you don't want to use your brush. I hear that since it's so clumpy, the stuff in there can damage the integrity of the brush hairs, so it's better to use something else. I don't have an entire arsenal of hobby tools, so here I am using the opposite edge of an X-Acto knife. Strangely enough, it does the job fairly well, but if possible, I recommend finding a more efficient tool. The last paint I use is Agrax Earthshade. This stuff is already pretty thin, so you don't need to thin it down much. The shade really brings out all of the details in the model. Every crack and crevice has a lot more depth to it once this shade is applied. Be careful not to apply too much of this stuff though. It is a brownish shade, so applying too much can make some colors change in ways you don't want. This is exactly what happened with one of the Stormcast Eternals I painted a while back. They're supposed to be these golden clad warriors, but one of the guys I painted ended up being more of a bronze clad warrior, so be careful. For this set, I think I made the same mistake of putting a bit too much of the shade, but in this case, I think it complements the rats since they're kind of supposed to be these ugly, dirty, grimy little guys anyway. And that concludes the painting time lapse. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I certainly enjoyed painting this set, and if I ever get any more sets or models in the future, I'll try to remember to record painting them. If you have any recommendations for tabletop wargame models that are reasonably priced, please send them my way. I do love painting Warhammer stuff, but I know there are a lot of other cool models from other franchises out there. With all that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll catch y'all later.